Moving ahead, our first panel discussion is on the topic Building India's Gold Monetization Marketplace. For that, I would like to invite our moderator, Neil Borate, Editor in Chief, The Fine Print, and our speakers, Richa Agarwal, Chief General Manager, SEBI, Khushbu Ranawat, Regional Chairman, Western Region and Member, National Exhibition Subcommittee, GGEPC, Rajneesh Gupta, Partner, Tax and Economic Policy Group, EY India, and Mr. Ramakrishnan Padmanabhan, General Manager, Department of Metals and Commodities, IFSCA, who is joining us virtually today. Mr. Nilesh Lodaya, Chief Business Officer, CDSL, he is running a bit late, so he will join us shortly. I request all the panelists to kindly join us on the dais. Mr. Padmanabhan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, loud and clear. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir. We can hear you properly.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am keenly aware that it's an afternoon session, and that means there's always a lot of drowsiness that sets in. So hopefully we'll wake you up a little bit. And part of that, can you hear me right at the back? So I was saying that it's an afternoon session, and there's always some drowsiness that sets in. So hopefully we'll wake you up a little bit. As part of that waking up, you get some homework from me, which is that the last 15 minutes are yours to ask. So please make your notes, please ask your questions. I do this with all panels where you get to participate, it's not just my panel. So thank you, everyone. We have practically all the regulators here, and we have a very confusing architecture in India. So today, hopefully, they'll simplify all of the ways in which you can invest in gold. And I'm going to start with the problem. Problem is, as all of you know, that gold is a dead metal, and we sink our savings into it year after year, and those savings are not deployed for the businesses of this country, and so there's a kind of net loss of currency, of our savings as well. So my first question to Mr. Padmanabhan and to Mr. Singh, that India imports 800 tons of gold every year, and this puts, of course, pressure on our current account deficit. So how can the gold monetization solve this problem? Mr. Padmanabhan, if you'd like to take that first.
Yes, thank you very much to the Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Mr. Khosla to allow me to participate in this panel discussion. See, this is a very important time, and this is something that has been repeated over a period of maybe last 10 or 15 odd years. Whenever there is a situation of an oil price rising or a current account deficit, something that happened in 2013, that kind of a repeat is happening even now. And that is probably the reason that we start looking at gold as a probable it's more easier to look at the lens of, from our lens, the gold imports, based on which we decide that, okay, this is one of the items which is actually being imported. One thing I just want to throw some kind of a statistics is that, if I'm not wrong, jewelry loans in India, 19 lakh crore is the outstanding amount as far as jewelry loans are concerned. Now, if you look at these jewelry loans, that approximately tantamounts to around 1400 tons of gold. Now, this 1400 tons is actually going back into the financial system. So you cannot say it's a dead asset. The fact of the matter is that somebody, a small person who's actually selling their wares in actually on the road, they actually go and actually put their gold with an NBFC, their jewelry with NBFC. They get the working capital from that particular NBFC, and they continue to purchase from the market and then sell their wares on a daily basis. And they undertake these kind of transactions. So we cannot say that gold is a dead asset. It might be a dead asset in the eyes of certain set of investors. But the fact is that at the other set of investors, or maybe somebody who wants quick liquidity, there are people who use it. So that is one part of it. In terms of reducing the import, now that is something that is kind of a cultural shift that you're expecting. Pramod sir made a very important point in terms of caratometer. Now, this caratometer is something which has been introduced by Tanishq. I'm pretty sure the other jewelers also must be having it. But if you actually look at the legacy gold, now if somebody wants to go and check that legacy gold, if they put it on the caratometer, they'll obviously not get that the value or the carat or the purity that they were expecting. In this scenario, if they're wanting to actually monetize that gold, which means that at least 10 to 15% of the gold is actually wastage. Why would somebody from your home, who is probably a female or somebody who's actually possessed that actual gold in form of a jewelry, want to actually melt it and then make it into a bullion bar because of the fact that 12% is what the wastage could be as when you melt it, and the other 3% or 6% where in which you are having to probably being taxed as far as GST is concerned. So something you need to understand that when you are actually selling the gold to somebody because of the fact that you are converting it, at that point of time there is a GST charge as well. So if you are selling it, which means that 3% GST that you paid is you are not going to get back. So these things are actually factors to stall a person who actually want to monetize it. The other important aspect that I want to add here is that when the monetization scheme was devised, at that point of time, what our observation at that point of time, I was a banker, was that the stakeholder consultations were largely on the jewelry segment. We need to understand that jewelry segment is having its own issues. You need to actually focus on the bullion bars, the investment bars which could have been with the individuals rather than focusing on the jewelry. So if you could focus on items which are actually in form of bars and coins, that would make a larger sense because of the fact that they are more purer in nature and it's more easier to get it back into the system because of the fact that there is more, it is mostly 99.5% plus purity. So your focus is, in my understanding or opinion, may be wrong to focus too much on the jewelry segment. Yes, if they're willing to, what do you say, invest or rather deposit based on the factor that they're willing to let go of the 12% wastage, 6% wastage, or the 3% GST, that's a different matter. But I am not very sure whether the depositor would like to actually waste such a huge amount as far as gold valuation is concerned. Apart from this, the monetization scheme also has one interesting aspect. You can only deposit the gold with the bank, but at the end, you have to have a 1 year time period or a 3 year time period within which either the bank will actually give back the cash, which means actually the bank has purchased the gold, or you give back the gold itself to the depositor. Now, this is where you need to again probably have some kind of a structure. Why should the bank at all take it in form of deposit? Why not ask the banks to actually purchase the gold itself on day one? So that will also add value because of the fact that it leads to higher turnaround. Also, the fact is that banks are more trusted as far as intermediation is concerned. And they were already involved in the business of sale of gold coins at one point of time. And they understand which refiner they should go as far as purity is concerned. So let the banks choose these products, wherein which unless and until we as regulators also should think in a larger context that let us not limit them only to the monetization part in terms of deposit of gold, rather than that actually focus on the buying of gold also from the domestic market, where there have been situations even in the past where the domestic markets are at deep discounts when compared to the international markets. In fact, after the duty increase from 6 to 15%, practically no import of gold has happened. So, which means that there was gold available in the Indian market and they could have actually purchased it from the Indian market itself and lent it or sold it to other jewelers or other bullion traders who were interested to actually procure that gold. So, all these things probably will actually we can look at actually reducing the imports, and it will lead to an orderly market structure as far as participation is concerned. This is my view.
Okay. So Khushbu, if I may turn to you. If you can tell the ordinary Indian who has gold in his or her safe, it's just sitting there idle, at risk of theft, what can they do to put it to work and get some yield out of it?
No, it's a very interesting question, Neil, and thank you for having me here. Today I'm representing not just a billion Indians like you and me, I'm also representing a billion karigars, artisans, everybody associated with our gold industry. This whole impact and Modi ji's statement has brought a lot of emotional tangent to our industry. And yes, there is an after effect. Yes, there are less buyers in stores, and we are running huge setups of factories. We're employing many artisans who have no work right now. So this entire conclave, and thank you Bombay Chamber for organizing this thought process where an entire industry is dependent on all of you, SEBI, RBI, CTCL, everybody to come up with great schemes for us that we can together come out of this crisis. We support Modi ji and we understand that there is a pressure on the reserves, and we also understand that we are a billion, many billion people who need employment, who need livelihoods. And together we can come out of this. And very rightly, Pramod ji, when he started, he said that carat meter, there are so many schemes that help jewelry, help the ideal gold. So I'll be very honest, Neil's question was, there's a lot of jewelry lying idle. Yes, many of us haven't even worn jewelry today to this conclave, right? We have jewelry at home though. So why aren't we doing that? Very simply, it's because we love our jewelry. It's emotional for us. We have been given it to it as inheritance or as security. You know, I was traveling with a friend to the States about 20 days back, and she was wearing like 3-4 pieces of bracelets and earrings, and I said, yaar, beach pe jana hai, tu kyun itna sab pehen ke aayi hai? And you know what she told me? She's like, if kal kuch ho jata hai, then I can at least sell the gold and I can at least come back to India. And that was a very strong statement that people don't get rid of the gold in their homes because it's liquidity, easy to go to. And a lot of these schemes that our government has been doing a few years was not that easy. It needs to be easy, it needs to be something I can understand, something my friends can understand, that yes, हम डीमैट अकाउंट तो अभी समझ गए, but आपको हमें आगे का समझाना होगा कि कैसे हम, you know, you've been successful in digital payments, you've been successful in equity, you've been successful in so many things, but why not gold monetization? You need to make it easy for us to understand. GMS, the interest rates were very modest. In fact, if I have that gold lying at home, I'm getting a better return. So we're happy, like gold does need to recycle for our artisans, for our business. So we need to come up with schemes that our people will understand and I can understand too.
Nilesh, thank you for joining us. So I'm going to come now to the gold monetization scheme. Now, this has been around since 2015, and in the last 11 years, less than 30 tons has been mobilized from a household stock of 25,000 tons. That's a 0.1% rate. So what went wrong?
There were a few factors. Just at a high level, there are three things. So one is that the rate of return was pretty low. So it was in the range of 0.5 to 0.6%, which did not find favor. Okay. Second was that once you deposit the gold and you got some kind of a deposit receipt, that was non-transferable. So there was essentially no secondary market. And third is that, the process entailed, giving away your gold in any form, then it would get melted. There would be, emotional reasons where, what you thought was your priority is not actually the purity of gold. And then when you actually want to kind of get your gold back, you would get it in a different form. So I think these were the three main reasons that it never really took off. And as of now also, I think theoretically that scheme is there and it is only left to, short-term loans are available, also provided any bank is, willing to do that. So pretty much didn't find too much favor there. Yeah.
Okay. Richa, if you could explain to us the new EGR scheme on the block. This was conceptualized by SEBI, and I'll come to Nilesh as well on this. But for people to understand how this is going to work.
Uh, So, uh, thank you firstly, Bombay Chambers of Commerce and Industry for having us. So, if I were to articulate EGR life cycle, so broadly we can say it has 4 stages. Stage number 1 would be gold procurement. So basically, you buy bars from suppliers which are domestic, overseas. There's a GST incidence of 3%, which the opening remark and Mr. Rao both addressed in their address. Then you take it, deposit it, and create EGR. So you and then for that you deposit it with the vault manager or with the refiner to convert it, who creates EGR and then credits it into a demat account through a depository. Then the trading cycle comes in where you trade it like any other security. It becomes security, and securities are not subject to GST. So GST is not applicable. And the last step will be if you want to convert it back into gold, so you redeem it, you surrender it to vault manager, you take delivery, but you will have to pay GST. So those are the 4 stages broadly how SEBI had created EGR framework. It's yet to be tested. We have certain amount of volumes at NSE and BSE. So if you see recently, I just saw the data. So around 36 lakh of turnover at NSE and BSE around 2,41,000 turnover. So we are yet to achieve a very high turnover, but we are getting there. So there are 3 vault managers. One of them have around 1,300 grams of gold. They have around 47 bars. All of this is publicly available. But we are yet to see very large volumes in it. But this is how the whole life cycle transpires.
Okay, it's early days yet. Mr. Padmanam, you had your hand up. You want to add to this?
Yes, there was a mention by the earlier panelist about the low rate of interest. You need to understand under the short-term bank deposit, it was with the bank, but there was another concept called medium and long-term deposit. The rate of interest for 8 years was around 2.5%, and for the medium, which was 12 to 15 years, was actually 2.75% given by the government of India. So the rate of interest was not a problem. The problem was actually integration with the refiners. By the banks. You need liquidity providers for any market. You need to understand about gold markets. Gold markets, the main liquidity providers are the banks. The banks are absent in this ecosystem as far as gold monetization scheme is concerned. You need to get the banks at every stage in terms of even procuring from the refiner. You need to get refiners getting onboarded. You also need to get the jewelers to actually sell that gold to the refiners. The banks should onboard those refiners. Why? Because of the fact that if you see in the overseas markets, most of the refiners are actually accredited to the London Bullion Markets Association. There is no SRO in India. That is one major aspect you need to take into consideration. No bank will take the risk on a particular refiner, and we are talking about gold without having any good delivery standards. Everybody seems to be talking about the BIS standards. The BIS standards is technical standards only. If you need to have acceptability of the bullion bars that is manufactured, it is required to have alliance or some kind of an alignment with the OECD's due diligence guidance that is propagated by the OECD. The LBMA has linkages with the OECD. The newly formed UA Good Delivery Standards have linkages with the OECD. The Responsible Minerals Initiative have linkages with the OECD. The Responsible Jewelry Council has got the linkages with the OECD. In Indian markets, in order to have acceptability of the banks, you need to have something that has got linkages with the OECD. And that alignment is required. Just by having the technical standard of BIS doesn't deem to be a good delivery standard. Good delivery standard means the technical standards married with the OECD's due diligence guidance, which actually talks about responsible sourcing of the gold. Now, if whatever receipt that you make, it has to be from a gold that is actually coming from the right sources. That is very important for anybody to actually accept the product. It is something similar to conflict gold or conflict diamonds. So we need to understand all these aspects before we get into talking about the monetization itself. So you need to get all these things as ecosystem in place before we ask the banks to actually touch that gold. That is very important. That's how the international markets work. So for gold monetization scheme to work, a standalone basis cannot be done. It has to be an integrated approach. You need to have every regulatory authority to come on one floor or one stage, and based on which you have to decide the policies, and based on which you will be able to integrate the entire ecosystem. This is my view.
Okay, I'd like to get one more opinion on EGRs, and then I want to come to the other two very important aspects of investing in gold, which is ETFs and digital gold. Rajneesh, would you like to add something on EGRs?
Yeah. So thank you for that. I'll just start by putting a little bit of a perspective, though in a way it will look like a repetition. So we have 30,000 tons of gold. Now if you put a monetary value to this gold, it actually comes to $4.5 trillion, which is, if we take India's economy at $3.8 trillion today, we're talking of 1.2, 1.3 times. The stock market capitalization is about $5 trillion. And if you look at the amount of stocks which are held by households, so gold is the biggest asset which the Indian households hold, maybe other than the real estate. I don't have the monetary value for that. So it's really important. And 65, $70 billion of imports are very small when you look at the gold holding which is there in the country. Now, a lot of the things that we have talked about are in context of new gold which is getting introduced in terms of the standards which are there of assaying and all that. So when we were doing our work, basically, which was much more from a perspective of, there were two pieces of work. One was digital gold, and the second was some work that we had done when SEBI was looking at introducing gold trading. So I think one thing which was touched upon earlier is that there needs to be a regulator who is willing to take responsibility over this entire ecosystem which is there, and which was on the context of digital gold. The second thing is we talked about vaulting earlier on. Before I get into vaulting, let me get into the standards which are there, which have also been spoken about. So if I am somebody in a temple and I am going to put my gold out, monetize it, and some third party is going to buy that gold from me, then it needs to be of a standard which is there. We can't have disputes over whether
Sorry,
it is...
just to clarify, so all of this is digital gold, right? This is not EGRs.
It's
Your
for both
references
actually.
are to digital.
It actually works for
both?
both of them.
Okay.
If it's any gold which is getting bought, basically, which is there. So there's a point which was made earlier, it needs to be of a LBMS standard because it's a global asset which is there. Somebody, if globally, if he wants to buy or trade in that, he should be very careful about that. The third thing I'll say about is vaulting. Vaulting needs to be at a scale. If we are talking of $4.5 trillion, so I may vault my gold in Chennai and I may sell my EGR and somebody wants to buy it in Jammu, or somebody wants to take the delivery over there in Calcutta. Now, we are not talking of a financial instrument, we are talking of a commodity where the delivery needs to be taken at a different place. So you need to have a more extensive vaulting network which is there. The standards are very clear, the vaults need to be audited. And so that as somebody who's putting this gold, I know that it's certified, it's there. And lastly is the...
Sorry, so are these things missing in the current SEBI regulations?
Sorry?
Are these things missing in the current SEBI regulations?
They're
on
not missing, but SEBI regulation is only to the extent of what is being traded on the stock exchange. It's not looking at the ecosystem which is beyond what is getting traded on the stock exchange, and which was a point which was being made earlier. And then I also just want to touch a little bit on the GST, though a lot has been spoken about it already. So in large number of countries, you don't actually impose GST on gold which is above a certain purity. So I think the fundamental issue is what is gold? Is it a commodity? Is it a consumption item? Is it an investment? Is it something like currency which is there? Now, depending upon the assumption that you are going to make of how you're going to treat gold, you're going to tax it in a different type of a way. And I think this 3% GST, which results in blocked input tax credit, lying with vault managers, you can never go beyond a scale because somebody has to fund that. And then you don't have a one-to-one matching because I may have paid my GST, then that EGR gets traded, it may get redeemed at some other location. So I think these are the challenges which are there. And if you really want to go, and one more thing I'll add, is that you also require a lot of institutional capacity with the banks because a lot of the gold is lying in rural areas. So those bank managers need to be very, very comfortable with that.
So is this why EGRs are not taking off?
Sorry?
Is this why EGRs are not taking off in your view?
So as far as the EGRs which are being traded on the stock exchange, I think the fundamental reason is the GST. That was our thing. And the other thing which was there is that, there needs to be I'd say GST is a big reason. And the other thing is that if there are multiple exchanges which come on, then you need to have a way of equalizing price. You need to have one price discovery. You can't have multiple price discoveries which are there. But the issues are very common, whether you look at from a GMS perspective, or you look at from a digital gold perspective, or you look at from an EGR perspective.
Okay. So, Richa, let me bring you on two very, very important topics that are still pending. One is gold ETFs. So, the surge has been massive, 50 lakh portfolio, 50 lakh folios, AUM crossing 50,000 crores. But the gold backing those ETFs is largely imported. So, could ETFs be backed by standardized, monetized household gold instead? And what would have to be changed for this? In terms of pricing of ETFs, that has changed to domestic price of gold. But what else has to change?
So I'll try to address that question in a different way. So gold ETF AUM is, last I checked, around 1.7 lakh crores, which is huge. But as a percentage, it's only 2.3% of total mutual fund AUM, which is around 73 lakh crores. So it's growing, but it's not that large. As a percentage of passive investment schemes, which are all ETF together, so it's all passive ETFs together would be 14 lakh crores. So that's a bigger share which gold ETFs have. Silver ETFs are smaller. Let's not talk about silver. But, golds which are backed by ETF, our regulation gives a lot of leeway. It says that broader 50% non-physical ceiling, you can have GMS and GDS, which is gold deposit scheme and gold monetized scheme, and the residual percentage can be held by ETCDs, which is traded derivatives on the exchange. Now, coming to the first part of your question.
Sorry, just to recap the percentage, that's 50% can be
non-physical
Yeah.
ceiling. So that's specified in the regulation itself. Now, gold backing ETFs, currently what we require is LBMA gold bars because you need a standardized product to be traded on the exchange, and so that what you are getting. Basically, you cannot have a non-standardized product. Though valuation of mutual funds, the keynote speaker, Ms. Praveena Rai, had also pointed in her speech, those we are allowing mutual funds now. We have recently enabled pool prices of stock exchange for the purpose of settlement. And for delivery on the exchange, good delivery standards can be used. But there is a little bit of dichotomy. We have been pointed that out. Let's see if we can look at it again without promising that we'll definitely look at it. So SEBI is cognizant of that matter. Now, going back to your first question of what we would need to change to make sure household savings come in. See, again, it's a large part is coming in. You need a standardized product to be on the exchange platform. Having said that, we have already issued a cautionary. I will not call it a cautionary, it's just an advice. People are free to invest in digital gold, but those are not regulated by SEBI. If you need SEBI's investor protection, you need private vaulting to be sure where your money is going and whether it's actually held in that form. You need to come through one of the SEBI regulated instrument. So SEBI is a regulator for the stock market where you need standardized exchange traded contracts. So hopefully over a period of time, EGR would address that and all the issues which have been pointed out by my other speakers. Maybe we can look at it and we are not the ones to resolve it. Maybe government can resolve it and maybe it will grow so much in volume that will take care of it.
Can I add to that?
Yes,
Just,
just one second. Khushbu, I have one follow-up for Richa, which is we've seen a lot of ETFs recently close for fresh inflows, and a lot of gold savings funds cap fresh inflows. Is this related to the stoppage of imports because it's linked to somehow linked to the imports? It's very because there's been no transparency from the AMCs on this.
The best people to answer would be AMCs because I will not be able to comment on why they have stopped that particular inflow.
Okay, Khushbu.
Would just like to add on Richa ma'am's concern of how we can standardize gold more easily, so it's easier for them to help with the whole monetization and to get gold into circulation. Neilji, actually, Indians are not scared of getting rid of their gold. They're actually not scared. I mean, in Kerala, there is 281 tons of gold that is being used and given to NBFCs as collateral. So people are comfortable using gold loans. People are not comfortable giving it for some other scheme. So why so? If there is something we can learn from that is why gold loans are successful and the rest of the schemes are not. And secondly, we have a large ecosystem of very well certified jewelers. We have named a few also over the entire panel. And us as jewelers is somebody, I think, the buyers trust. Banks is somebody not yet that buyers trust. Your mom, your wife, your sister, they are more keener to go to that independent jeweler or a brand name and buy from them or circulate their gold with them. So we are there to help you too, if we can standardize together.
Okay, so I promised everyone that the last 10 minutes are yours. So we are a little bit less. We're about 9 minutes away from the time limit. So if you noted down some questions, please ask. Raise your hands. We'll pass the mic to you. Yeah, please. 1 sec. We'll get the mic.
So firstly, thanks to Bombay Chamber of Commerce for such an engaging topic. To just highlight a few points, we have been talking, every policy holder, every policy maker, the government, everybody has been talking about one problem, and we all know it. See, it's not that we don't know it. We've been reading so much since Modi ji said don't buy gold. Now, you talk to anybody, he knows there is a problem. But what is the solution, right? We have not been figuring out that. We know there is a problem with imports. We know that whenever you buy a gold ETF, 50% of it is going into imports. You talk about EGRs. Yes, there is a problem of GST and there is a problem of acceptance, as Pramod sir rightly said. 99% of the cause is demand, right? We all understand that. Those are basic problems. But what we haven't talked about and where we are not concentrating as policy makers, where IFSCA, SEBI, RBI, NSE, MCX, they can all come together, as Khushbu rightly pointed out. We are not thinking why GMS failed. GMS failed not because people did not believe in the system, they did not believe in the government. GMS failed basically because of the way it was implied. Padmanabhan sir rightly said, that there are issues that we don't understand and we are not figuring out when to, address those. The biggest problem is trust. If we are trusting in NBFC with our gold, right, and we are ready to take 60% of that value as a loan, giving 15% of interest and getting burdened by that, then there is not a problem of trust. The problem is the infrastructure. We don't have an infrastructure, and together, even today, in spite of Modi ji's appeal, Sir, okay, let me introduce myself. I'm Amol Bansal. We have been working on this, building this infrastructure, the guardrails for mobilizing not digital gold, but the physical gold in India, the idle gold in India, and we've been talking about it for the last 4 years, 5 years. I'm a jeweler, 30 years into the industry. So when we are talking about trust, jewelers, yes, we are jewelers, we understand customers want trust of jewelers. But trust me, even today, 90% of people will not come and give me the gold. Right? They will not just give me the gold because I'm a jeweler. They might come and give me the gold if there are guardrails, as ma'am's rightly said. Institutions like SEBI, institutions like RBI help to make people comfortable with the infrastructure and the guardrails. But in the absence of all of that, we can keep talking about this problem, and the problem will keep talking about the problem. But as long as we are not talking about the solutions, as long as we are not talking about balanced guardrails, as long as we are not talking about gold, which is ample, there is no shortage of gold in India. There's no problem of anything. The problem is infrastructure, and that is something that somehow, when it comes to gold, we don't talk about it. The gold industry doesn't talk about it. The policy makers don't talk about it, and together we don't talk about it.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So people don't come to jewelers because of lack of trust, you're saying.
Yes.
Richard, you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, not to your point, but the number of retail investors in ETFs is staggering 117 lakh investors. So these are some, some things which are publicly available. 95% of investors in gold ETF are retail investors. HNIs are 5%, around 5 lakh investors. Corporates are 0.59, so which are around 72,000. There are no FPIs, no banks, no FIs. So, just to come back to what you were asking, we already have a large number of retail investors. They're putting in their money in the gold ETFs. So it's a successful scheme per se as far as retail investors are concerned. So maybe we'll see those kind of volumes in EGR, which is a parallel product which is available, ETCD, etc. And as far as financialization of gold, I think that's where we are heading. Because ultimately they are backed by some sort of physical gold or some other instruments which are backed by gold.
But if I may, Richard, will a day come where I can bring, let's say, my mom's jewelry with her consent to a smelting center, get it converted and get an ETF unit in return?
So see, for example, in EGR, we don't want it to be passing through private hands. So we want refiners, which are big refiners. Because, financial products do have AML concerns. So you need a refiner or an importer to give you those standardized products. Otherwise, the cost will increase because then I'll have to assay it, and none of our commodity derivative products work like that. So I think that is afar off as of now. That's not something that SEBI has envisaged while creating EGR or even ETF. So we have looked at a larger standardized products because that does increase the cost, and you will simply not buy it or get your mom's jewelry if the pricing is too far away.
Anyone? Yep. Can we get a mic to the gentleman in the middle, please? If you can keep your hand raised so that they'll know. Okay, we'll just come to you, Mr. Padmanabhan, in just a minute, but I want to get one more question in.
Thank you, sir. My name is Gopen Gupta. I have a, like a different nice suggestion for, you need to make, people who intend to make donations or payments to temples or for any other institution. So why not they have, something valued at the current, the rate of the gold, at a standard rate, RBI or whatever the body says, and make the donation. So you don't have the, impetus and the burden of the physical gold. So that takes away, and people make it to the productive use. And second thing, that financially that certificate, so that gets accountable, like that, whatever that body or the institution or the person is getting that, that valuation rupees amount. So that gets, digitalized also. I mean, it gets into record. So by one, by one shot, you are hitting, two targets. Thank you.
Were you able to get the question?
Sorry, I mean, I had a hard
Yeah,
time
could you repeat it
understanding.
once more? There was a little bit of echo, so I think you guys might not
Did you
have heard.
understand it?
No, there was.
I'll repeat.
Yeah.
My suggestion is, as the Indian government is saying that the pressure, they're not to, to buy on for gold. So definitely people will try to get it from abroad, and it will be difficult, the duty, etc. And even there is a limitation. So when people generally in India, see, maximum we do donate in temples, for example, or donations to institutions or to persons or to some. So just value it digitally and give it a gold certificate. So that person, monetizes, usko immediately paisa mil gaya. And the other party is also happy. We don't have the physical burden of the gold. So it will be putting it to the productive use.
Absolutely. I think we are waiting for infrastructure like that. When India will be able to do it, and this conclave and this dialogue is there to encourage that. And
Ma'am, my point is that the thing is that it gets recorded also. So whosoever is getting whatsoever value, it comes into record, So nobody will say, I got only 10 grams and or not 1 kg. So whatever. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's a fair point. When it comes to donations, etc., there's not too many transparent records. But we are, of course, out of time. Any further points? Mr. Padmanabhan, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I wanted to add something. So the fact is that what we at IFSC have done recently is in last year, that is last year, December 2025, we came out with a consultation paper, actually, or a public consultation on the IFSC's good delivery guidelines, which we are largely aligning to the OECD's due diligence. So we are providing the foundations before even the infrastructure is getting built. So we are trying to bring our own good delivery guidelines, which is in alignment with the OECD, so that there's a possibility of acceptability of the bullion bar that has been refined by the Indian refiners. We need to look at monetizing by actually exporting the gold as well. How Switzerland has actually become a main trade center as far as refining is concerned. There are only 5 refiners there. Dubai has only 3 refiners which are UAE good delivery. None of these countries actually produce neither consume the gold. Our focus should be to bring our foundations in place so that we become a refining hub. And if there is a possibility of the excess gold that is transacted in the domestic markets made into standard bars, doing the responsible sourcing, because largely Indian market is a recycled gold market. We do not have mine sources. So it is practically easier for us to bring it into the ecosystem. What essentially means is that if you are able to make refined gold and then export into the IIBX, that is the thought process, wherein which you would have a price discovery being achieved there. And if need be, that can be further exported overseas. So that will lead to a proper monetization where it is moving into IIBX, and if there is a demand from the nominated banks or nominated agencies, those entities can actually purchase the gold in the bullion exchange itself, and the export can be happening from the domestic side, wherein which it will move to the IIBX. So you create a circular structure wherein which it will all be within our country, except the fact is that IIBX will be on the offshore side, and you have a domestic gold exchanges on the onshore side. So this is something that we are actually envisaging, and I am pretty sure that the GJEPC is also quite supportive of this thought process, and we are actually doing large-scale public consultations with all the industry stakeholders and trying to implement this as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, Padmanabhanji. And you have rightly spoken. Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council here is here for you. We have actually all the stakeholders in place. We have modernization, monetization, tokenization, financial transformation. We have standardization also. We can all get together and aptly create India's gold revolution. Thank you for having us.
Well said. Thanks, everyone.
That was a quite thought-provoking panel discussion. I request our Director General Sandeep Khosla to present mementos to our panelists and moderator as a token of appreciation. A big round of applause for our panelists. Starting with our moderator Neil Borate. Richa Agarwal ma'am. Khushbu Ranawat. Nilesh Lodaya. Rajneesh Gupta. And our moderator Neil Borate. A big round of applause for our speakers. I request our panelists to join us for a group picture. Ma'am, please join us.